Thank you for joining with me as we continue our exploration of A Course in Miracles. As usual, we will be reading a section of the text. We will be practicing lesson number 44 together, and we will be reviewing principle number 12. And so before I begin with today's reading, I just wanted to share some interesting observations over the last couple of weeks. So our focus through the text has been on vision. And interestingly, I noticed that the vision in my right eye was shifting, that there was this artifact of light that was hitting my right eye. And when I shared this with a friend of mine who is an ER nurse by training and experience, when I told her what I was experiencing, she said, you need to get that looked at because it sounds like it could be a retina detachment. And so you want to make sure that it's not that, because that can lead to blindness. So I got that checked out, and I couldn't help contemplating or noticing that it was interesting that we've been focusing on vision, and then I'm experiencing this thing to pay attention to for my own vision. So the retina specialist looked at the results and said, no, there's no retina detachment, but possibly when you're over a certain age, according to him, everybody's eyes have a gel in them, and then that gel becomes liquid, and perhaps that's what's happening. So anyway, I'm sharing this to say that I was driving along a fairly big highway, and so it was 3 lanes on one side, 3 lanes going the other direction, and then in the middle of those lanes was this very large median strip, which was grassy. And as I was driving along this road, I was contemplating to myself, in case I lost my physical sight, what I was contemplating what life would be like blind. And so as I was thinking about that and playing out what my life would be like, I kid you not, I looked over, and in the median strip, again, in the middle of this massive highway, was a blind man with a cane walking through the grass. And I thought to myself, this realm is made up. I'm making this up, was what I deducted from that experience. I created that. Also, what's happened in the last couple of weeks is I've noticed 2 Mandela effects. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what a Mandela effect is, but essentially it points to these glitches in the fabric of this reality. And one of them was a spelling of a word. In my memory, at least, I have a memory of spelling the word lens with an E, Lense. And so when I went to write it that way, fully confident, no thoughts about it, it came back with a squiggly line telling me that was a misspelling. And so then when I looked to see the correct spelling, it was suggesting Lens, which looked totally strange to me. And then when I looked it up to see, okay, well, maybe it's just, British, Australian English. It's the difference between British and Australian English. But no, it even said, no, it's always been Lens, lens. So the Mandela effect, if you're not familiar with it, like I said, is when there is a glitch and there's a part of your consciousness that maintains the memory of that particular timeline or that particular reality. I'm coming to the point of view that this realm is downloaded. We've talked about this before, in as much as when you go to sleep at night, you basically check out of this story. But then as you begin to wake up, this story gets re-loaded, re-uploaded into your conscious awareness. And so convincingly, you continue on with this story in your waking life, and it has the appearance of chronology. What this points to, what the Mandela effect points to, is that there's shifts in the story, and then there's this part of your consciousness that remembers prior to the shift, that holds on to that memory. But if you went around and asked others, so for example, how have you spelled the word lens? And they'll say, well, it's spelled Lens. What's wrong with you? It's always been spelled that way. And so their conscious minds successfully took the change in the script. Famous Mandela effects are, okay, the namesake, Mandela. And this is because there's a slew of people who have a memory that Nelson Mandela died in prison. I'm one of those people. I have a memory where he died in prison. And so it's a surprise to hear that actually he didn't. He died of old age. Other fairly well-known Mandela effects are Sex and the City. Remember that show, HBO show from the early 2000s, Sex and the City versus Sex in the City. Another one is the Berenstain Bears. It's a children's book, and the spelling of the name of that book series. So if you haven't heard of this before, you can look it up. You can do a little exploration yourself. But I just wanted to bring it up because something seems to be going on, and it correlates directly with what the Course in Miracles seems to be pointing to and seems to be teaching, that this realm is an illusion. It's only believed to the extent of the limitations of our senses, which, as we've talked about before, are extremely limited, extremely dull. As we talked about in a previous video, that our eyes only perceive 1% of the spectrum of all the light. Our hearing is the same in terms of listening to sound and frequency and waves. Our taste is the same, sense of smell is the same. We are limited through our 5 physical senses of our experience of this reality. And so we only experience that which is a similar vibration, a like vibration to our interpretation devices, which are our physical senses. So anyway, for what it's worth, I'm just sharing my direct experience. And so here we are back again to continue with our reading. So without further ado, I shall share my screen. As usual, we click on Read A Course in Miracles, clicking on the text. We are in chapter 21, Reason and Perception. And so we are at section 4, the fear to look within. Okay. Paragraph 1. The Holy Spirit will never teach you that you are sinful. Errors he will correct, but this makes no one fearful. You are indeed afraid to look within and see the sin you think is there. This you would not be fearful to admit. Fear in association with sin, the ego deems quite appropriate and smiles approvingly. It has no fear to let you feel ashamed. It doubts not your belief and faith in sin. Its temples do not shake because of this. Your faith that sin is there, but witnesses to your desire that it be there to see. This merely seems to be the source of fear. Okay, so what this is saying is that the idea of sin is the ego's. This is what it seems to be saying to me, that the idea of sin is loved by the ego. It feels it is appropriate. And just to remind you again that according to the Course in Miracles, the definition of sin is that which is unloving. And that only that which is unloving creates what we perceive of as sin. And so what this paragraph seems to be saying is that there's a part of us that loves it, but the Holy Spirit will never teach us that we are sinful. That actually is the ego's domain. So I'm going to go back to share the screen so we can go back to paragraph 2. Remember that ego is not alone. Its rule is tempered, and its unknown enemy, whom it cannot even see, it fears. Loudly, the ego tells you not to look inward, for if you do, your eyes will light on sin, and God will strike you blind. This you believe, and so you do not look. Yet this is not the ego's hidden fear, nor yours who serve it. Loudly indeed the ego claims it is, too loudly and too often, for underneath this constant shout and frantic proclamation, the ego is not certain it is so. Beneath your fear to look within because of sin is yet another fear, and one which makes the ego tremble. Let's keep going to see what this is, what's underneath it. Paragraph 3. What if you looked within and saw no sin? This fearful question is one the ego never asks. And you, who ask it now, are threatening the ego's whole defensive system too seriously for it to bother to pretend it is your friend. Those who have joined their brothers have detached themselves from their belief that their identity lies in the ego. A holy relationship is one in which you join with what is part of you in truth, and your belief in sin has been already shaken. Nor are you now entirely unwilling to look within and see it not. Okay, so this is inviting us really to ask ourselves who would we be without the idea that we are inherently sinful, that we were born into original sin. And this is a controversial thought. This is a controversial idea because established religions will teach us that, especially the Christian ones will teach us that you are inherently sinful, that you were born into sin, born out of original sin, going back to the story of Adam and Eve, whereas the Course in Miracles is saying you won't find sin there. You won't find sin under the fear. And so then again, our entry point of contemplation through these paragraphs is, who am I? Who would I be without the belief in sin? Who would I be without the root of any thought system that is inherently unloving? And so perhaps use that as something to contemplate on this week. I'm going to go back and share the screen for paragraph 4. Your liberation still is only partial, still limited and incomplete, yet born within you. Not wholly mad, you've been willing to look on much of your insanity and recognize its madness. Your faith is moving inward, past insanity, and on to reason. And what your reason tells you now the ego will not hear. The Holy Spirit's purpose was accepted by the part of your mind the ego knows not of. No more did you. And yet this part, with which you now identify, is not afraid to look upon itself. It knows no sin. How otherwise could it have been willing to see the Holy Spirit's purpose as its own? Let's keep going for paragraph 5. This part has seen your brother and recognized him perfectly since time began, and it desired nothing but to join with him and to be free again as once it was. It has been waiting for the birth of freedom, the acceptance of release to come to you. And now you recognize that it was not the ego that joined the Holy Spirit's purpose. And so there must be something else. Think not that this is madness, for this your reason tells you, and it follows perfectly from what you have already learned. Okay, so this is interesting because it's dividing our consciousness into parts. So there's the part, the ego, that believes in sin and uses it to be frightened. And then there is another part that has taken on the Holy Spirit's purpose as its own. The Holy Spirit's purpose is to bring unconditional love here into any given moment and to use forgiveness as the bridge to see the truth, to see each other's innocence, including our own innocence, so that we become the living example of the golden rule, which is to do unto others as we would have them do unto ourselves. But it's to do unto others as ourselves. And that's how we see ourselves as one. So I'm going to go back to share the screen again for paragraph 6. There is no inconsistency in what the Holy Spirit teaches. This is the reasoning of the sane. You have perceived the ego's madness and not been made afraid because you did not choose to share in it. At times it still deceives you, yet in your saner moments its ranting strikes no terror in your heart. For you have realized that all the gifts it would withdraw from you, in rage at your presumptuous wish to look within, you do not want. A few remaining trinkets still seem to shine and catch your eye, yet you would not sell heaven to have them. Okay, so this is just saying that, okay, there's this part of our mind that is awakening to truth where it hasn't used this language in the paragraph, but what we've learned from previous readings of the text is that our little will is joining more steadily with holy will, with divine will. And so now we realize the truth beyond our purpose of our life. And so now this paragraph is just saying you might still get distracted here and there. You might still believe in the ego's wily ways, but overall there's a part of you now that knows. So what are those shiny things? What are those distractions? Well, really it's anything that we see in the news, any kind of big event that's happening. If it takes away your peace, if it leaves an unsettled feeling, if it has you feeling more divided, puts a barrier between you and others, your brothers and sisters, that is the shiny trinket. And so again, any story that steals your peace, that grabs your attention, steals your peace, leaves you with an unsettled feeling, has you judging your brothers and sisters, creating divisiveness, that is the remnant of this part of the mind that makes this made up world more important than the holy light of peace and truth, beauty, creativity, generosity, humor. So our job is to keep bringing ourselves back to that, no matter what, to not let ourselves get distracted. Let me go back to share the screen again for paragraph 7. And now the ego is afraid, yet what it hears in terror, the other part hears as the sweetest music, the song it longed to hear since first the ego came into your mind. The ego's weakness is its strength. The song of freedom, which sings the praises of another world, brings to it hope of peace, for it remembers heaven, and now it sees that heaven has come to earth at last, from which the ego's rule has kept it out so long. Heaven has come because it found a home in your relationship on earth, and earth can hold no longer what has been given heaven as its own. How lovely. So we're being shown that this part of our mind that shares the Holy Spirit's purpose for us is the way to bring heaven on earth. And it's through what the Course calls the holy relationship. And the holy relationship is the relationship where you are seeing your brother and sister as yourself, as an aspect of the divine, as the same as yourself. And so why would you treat it differently? Why would you treat your brothers and sisters differently? So the holy relationship, again, is just simply one where judgment has been laid to rest. You aren't seeing your brothers and sisters through the lens of judgment, which is really through a limited lens or a limited vision, which again ties into our theme of blindness, which was so interesting. You know that I don't read ahead, so it was interesting, a shock really, that I had just shared with you the story of contemplating what it would be to be in this life without physical vision, and then the next thing I see is a blind man walking down that busy median strip, and then in the paragraph itself it speaks of blindness. But that blindness is spiritual blindness. It's not seeing through the lens of faith. Okay, so I'm going to go back to share the screen again. So let's look at paragraph 8. Look gently on your brother and remember the ego's weakness is revealed in both your sight. What it would keep apart has met and joined and looks upon the ego unafraid. Little child, innocent of sin, follow in gladness the way to certainty. Be not held back by fear's insane insistence that sureness lies in doubt. This has no meaning. What matters it to you how loudly it is proclaimed? The senseless is not made meaningful by repetition and by clamor. The quiet way is open. Follow it happily and question not what must be so. I love it. I love how it says, little child, innocent of sin, follow in gladness the way to certainty. Be not held back by fear's insane insistence that sureness lies in doubt. Doubt is faithlessness. And doubt is fear in your own vulnerability and your own littleness. But what the text reminds us again and again is that we are much bigger than we think we are. We transcend this small, limited reality. And certainly we are beyond the limited experience of our 5 physical senses. And so it's really through the quietness that we find the truth, where we can be the instruments to create heaven here on earth. All right, so I'm going to come back and share the screen again so that we can now practice our lesson. So we go to workbook for students and we're up to lesson 44. And our lesson is God is the light in which I see. So I'm going to have the narrator read it for us.
Lesson 44. God is the light in which I see. Today we are continuing the idea for yesterday, adding another dimension to it. You cannot see in darkness, and you cannot make light. You can make darkness and then think you see in it, but light reflects life, and is therefore an aspect of creation. Creation and darkness cannot coexist, but light and life must go together, being but different aspects of creation. In order to see, you must recognize that light is within, not without. You do not see outside yourself, nor is the equipment for seeing outside you. An essential part of this equipment is the light that makes seeing possible. It is with you always, making vision possible in every circumstance. Today we are going to attempt to reach that light. For this purpose, we will use a form of exercise which has been suggested before and which we will utilize increasingly. It is a particularly difficult form for the undisciplined mind and represents a major goal of mind training. It requires precisely what the untrained mind lacks. Yet this training must be accomplished if you are to see. Have at least 3 practice periods today, each lasting 3 to 5 minutes. A longer time is highly recommended, but only if you find the time slipping by with little or no sense of strain. The form of practice we will use today is the most natural and easy one in the world for the trained mind, just as it seems to be the most unnatural and difficult for the untrained mind. Your mind is no longer wholly untrained. You are quite ready to learn the form of exercise we will use today, but you may find that you will encounter strong resistance. The reason is very simple. While you practice in this way, you leave behind everything that you now believe and all the thoughts that you have made up. Properly speaking, this is the release from hell. Yet perceived through the ego's eyes, it is loss of identity and a descent into hell. If you can stand aside from the ego by ever so little, you will have no difficulty in recognizing that its opposition and its fears are meaningless. You might find it helpful to remind yourself from time to time that to reach light is to escape from darkness, whatever you may believe to the contrary. God is the light in which you see. You are attempting to reach Him. Begin the practice period by repeating today's idea with your eyes open and close them slowly, repeating the idea several times more. Then, try to sink into your mind, letting go every kind of interference and intrusion by quietly sinking past them. Your mind cannot be stopped in this unless you choose to stop it. It is merely taking its natural course. Try to observe your passing thoughts without involvement and slip quietly by them. While no particular approach is advocated for this form of exercise, what is needful is a sense of the importance of what you are doing, its inestimable value to you, and an awareness that you are attempting something very holy. Salvation is your happiest accomplishment. It is also the only one that has any meaning, because it is the only one that has any real use to you at all. If resistance rises in any form, pause long enough to repeat today's idea, keeping your eyes closed unless you are aware of fear. In that case, you will probably find it more reassuring to open your eyes briefly. Try, however, to return to the exercises with eyes closed as soon as possible. If you are doing the exercises correctly, you should experience some sense of relaxation and even a feeling that you are approaching, if not actually entering into light. Try to think of light, formless and without limit, as you pass by the thoughts of this world. And do not forget that they cannot hold you to the world unless you give them the power to do so. Throughout the day, repeat the idea often, with eyes open or closed as seems better to you at the time. But do not forget, above all, be determined not to forget today.
Okay, so the idea for today's lesson is God is the light in which I see. This lesson description is really showing us that this is a meditative practice and we are actively seeking the light. In paragraph 2, it says, in order to see, you must recognize that light is within, not without. So again, as always, as we begin to prepare for our lesson, to start to bring your attention away from everything that's come before. Feel the support of the floor, of the furniture, if you happen to be sitting or laying down. Let yourself sink into the unconditional loving support that is here as the furniture, as the floor, as the air. For our practice together, we will close our eyes for 5 minutes. And so as you prepare for that, just start to bring your attention to the breath as it's happening, as it is. Just noticing the in and the out of your breathing. And so I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again so that you can look at the language. So there's the language, God is the light in which I see. And now I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. Starting the timer now. God is the light in which I see. And there is our timer. Okay. All right. So how was that for you? Did you notice a subtle shifting, a brightening behind the eyes, even though the eyelids were closed? What thought systems arose? Were you able to notice them without giving them too much attention? And then just bringing your mind back to the idea, God is the light in which I see. And so the instructions to practice this lesson for today are 3 to 5 minute practice periods. So upon waking, sometime in the middle of the day, and then before retiring to sleep. And the invitation is even to have an even longer practice period than that if you find that you're able to be without any kind of resistance, without any kind of strain, being with this idea and in the stillness and the silence. But isn't it a luxury just to take these 5 minutes to be still, not thinking about anything except that God is the light in which I see? All right, so I'm going to share the screen again, and we're going to go back to the text, the meaning of miracles, the principle of miracles, and we are looking at number 12. And what I like to say too is to take a screenshot of the principle and to have this as an added wisdom to contemplate throughout the day. Principle 12. Miracles are thoughts. Thoughts can represent the lower or bodily level of experience or the higher or spiritual level of experience. One makes the physical and the other creates the spiritual. Okay, so this is helping us to focus our attention as well. So if we're aware that thoughts can represent lower or higher levels of experience, then it's our responsibility to choose wisely, to pay attention to the quality of the thoughts that we're thinking and then choose. So the lower or bodily level experience thoughts, or the thoughts that represent or create the lower bodily level of experience, have a purpose, and yet is part of their purpose bringing us closer to happiness, wholeness, balance, strength, vitality? Or are they causing weakness, fear, pain, limitation, upset, and so on? Thoughts also contribute to the higher or spiritual level of experience. And so the fact that that's even a possibility for some people might be mind-blowing. And so again, where do you want to put your attention? Again, remembering that what we are is way grander, way more magnificent than the limitations of our physical nature. So this concludes today's video. Thank you again for joining with me. I invite you to sit in on one of the meditation classes or the meditation and natural healing self-help classes. The classes are held both in person and virtually. The meditation class is on the third Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern, and the meditation and natural healing self-help class is on the fourth Monday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you go to the elilacenter.org website and you click on the calendar, you can find the registration links there. So I look forward to seeing you in person or virtually. Until next time, have a great day.